Hey folks, Colin here, Local Enterprise Broadcasting. A little update on the cylinder head. As you can see, I went ahead and started polishing the exhaust ports. I've still got some work to do in the back there. I'm with the camera focus. You can see there's still some pitting in there that needs to be sanded out. I am kind of at the limit of my tools. I'm either going to have to buy different bits or get in there and do it by hand. Don't know. Basically, the only thing I'm going to do to the intake side here, it's impossible to see in there, but there's some casting. See, just want to knock that cast off right there, and then the same thing on the other side. Knock the casting down in there, but for the most part, I'm going to leave it alone. It's got 3 valves. I don't see any more flow that you can get besides having one more valve than most engines, single cylinder 4-strokes have. So I'm just going to clean up the burrs in here, but leave it a rough texture. I may, depending on see how bad the seats are offset from the casting, I may blend the seat to the casting, but that's about it. Like I did here, you can see I had to come in here and I had to blend this down. I know you see a line there, but that's, believe me, that's as far as you want to go. That's the offset. And here I had to smooth that out. See, there's still a little left there. You can kind of see it. So the idea is we want to make sure this is nice and round all the way there. Just use the valve seat as a guide, basically. This one I've got pretty much done. Got a high spot right here. But this is a really tedious process. And it's basically one of those things, once you start doing it, you pretty much don't stop. But like I said, I am at the limit of my tools, and I'm going to have to go and find something else for my rotary tool. And I need to get a different rotary tool. The one I bought was battery powered. Big mistake. For those of you out there who are looking to get rotary tools, don't buy one that is battery powered. It will last about an hour. And any of you that have done this type of work before, you know an hour just isn't enough. I am actually several hours into this already, and you guys can tell there's still a lot of work to be done. Gotta get that pitting out of there and get it, basically the rest of the exhaust port to look like this section right here where I did a little test just to see how much work it's actually going to take to get into the back sides here. And well, given how long that section took, yeah, this is going to be impossible with my current setup. So, those of you out there that are thinking about doing this to your 426, this is actually a really good way to get power out of what you have already. These heads flow very well from the factory, but when you start pulling the valves out, you can start to see, you know, just imperfections in the casting and stuff like that that can be smoothed out. And you know, some people will argue if you're not running forced induction, it doesn't really matter. In my case, I'm upping the compression a full point over stock. Stock was 12.5. I now have 13.5 to 1 in there. So, essentially raising the compression is a lot like, you know, adding forced induction in a way. Basically, we've increased the amount of compressed volume of gases here, so we want to make sure it exits the engine as fast as possible with as little restriction as we can achieve. When this is all said and done, I will say this would be a stage 1. Like I said, not doing too much to the intake. Stage 2 and 3, they would go in and like do dimple porting and all kinds of other neat stuff in here. I don't think it's necessary because I'm not, like I said, I'm not running forced induction, and I'm keeping the stock displacement. But by opening up this head here, this is going to allow me to utilize so even though the volume of compression, the static volume of compression is 13.5 to 1 now, running, you're not going to get the full volume of air like as if you were to remove the cylinder head, dump a bunch of air and put this back in. Simply because of the valves and the size of the intake runner and everything, you're limited. So realistically, it's kind of like down to 10 to 1 now. When the engine's running, given the actual real world volume of air that can get in there, be compressed and then blown up. So when you open these heads up, you actually allow so there's two different types of compression. There's static compression, which is an engine not running, you just cranking the motor over and just checking your static compression. And then there's running compression, or dynamic compression as it's more appropriately referred to. And what dynamic compression means is the amount of air that can actually go into the cylinder and get utilized. So by opening up your heads, it doesn't increase your static compression at all, because that's all done at the bore and the stroke and the piston. But here, when you do this, you allow more available air to get in there. It gets in there faster, less restrictive, and it exits the engine much faster. So when an engine's running at very high RPM, basically the idea to build power is to take air from here and get it to go that way as fast as possible. And if you can do that, you'll get more efficiency. So, all in a nutshell, I know it's kind of a long, stupid explanation as to why I'm doing this, because most people would say this is completely pointless. You are wrong. It is not pointless. Every race team on the planet does this with their engines if they actually want to bring home a checkered flag. Now, I'm not saying I'm racing, but saying there's proven performance increases by doing this. And I've gone as far as to look into actual flow benches and whatnot. Yeah, it's just, most of your power can be made at your cylinder head and your valve train, you know, and that's all about how much air you're letting into the cylinder. Bore, stroke, and, you know, compression, that's all important, it is, but really where you're making the serious usable power comes from your head and your valve train. That's why changing cams gives you so much noticeable power difference in the 4-stroke. So yeah, that's enough. If you guys liked the video, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. I'll keep you guys posted as I keep boring this out. Correction, I didn't bore anything out. I want to be very clear about that. If you look really close in here, I mean, I did not change any of the geometry of anything. I didn't open anything up, and I just simply went in there and sanded all this shit down and then smoothed it out the best I could. Like you see, still got work to do, so yeah. But anyways, thanks for joining me on this update for the cylinder head of Project 426. If any of you guys are out there building a 426 and you know, wanting to get a little bit more power, maybe your buddies on the 450s are kicking your ass, this is a cheap way to do this. And you will need one of these though, valve spring compressor. You're gonna need that. There's no way to get these valves out without it. So yeah, that's about it. Like, share, and subscribe. See you guys later.